This is Shifting Our Schools, episode 90. Teach like a coach or coach like a teacher?
I would still, to this day, in fact, I probably say it once a week to my students that I look at my classroom like a team. I teach like a coach, or I coach like a teacher. I don't know, however you want to put it. I
like
view them
that.
as one and the same.
I like that.
And I'm not willing to let, if I'm not willing on the baseball field to let one of my 9 or one of my 12 players not do their job, that's how I am in a class of 32.
Listen up, educators. Are you looking to take your classroom to the next level? The technological shift in education is happening right now. If you're looking to integrate technology into your classroom, you're in the right place. Welcome to Shifting Our Schools with your host, Jeff Udick.
Well, welcome back to another Shifting Our Schools. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to us in your favorite podcast player. If you are loving these conversations with educators, please stop by your favorite podcast player and leave us a review so that other teachers can find us and share in this learning as well. Also, if there's an episode that you love or you want to reach out to one of our guests, please do so. We love hearing from our listeners, and there are so many ways to do it. You can leave a Flipgrid response on our SOS Flipgrid. And full disclosure, if you do, I'd like to take the audio and bring those into our podcast. You can write an email to me, filling out the contact form on the sospodcast.org website, or leave a comment on a specific episode itself for all the world to see, and to even ask questions to some of our guests. We're constantly able to forward those questions on and have them respond to you. So if you have questions or you'd like to connect with some of our guests, it's just a great way to continue to build your own professional learning network. You can find all these links over at our website, sospodcast.org. We are all about sharing and building a community of learners and listeners here at Shifting Our Schools. I can't believe it's mid-July already. Why do summers go so fast? Today is our last interview with the educators from Enumclaw School District, who I spent all last year with learning together. I love when I get to form long-term relationships with teachers and schools and districts. That's how we change teaching and learning for the better. Not one-off PD sessions, but by year-long, sustainable, in-depth learning, changing and growing as a school. That's where my passion lies, and that's what I love doing. This week, I have a great conversation with a friend and someone who you'll hear in the podcast pushes me to be better as well. Steve Murphy was on Shifting Our Schools podcast back in episode 61, sharing his learning management tips and tricks for starting the new school year off right. Totally worth a listen, especially if you're using Google Classroom as your learning management system with students. It's episode 61. Steve is so reflective in his practice, so in tune with students that you can't help but just feel the passion of teaching he brings to his classroom. There is nothing better than a master teacher sharing his thoughts and ideas and his views of education and of students for all of us to learn from. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoy recording it, and every conversation I have with Steve is learning for myself, and I know you'll feel that same way as well. And with that, on with the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of Shifting Our Schools. I'm so excited to be here with my good friend, Steve Murphy, social studies teacher down at Enumclaw High School. Steve and I have become friends over the last couple of years with all the work I've been doing down there, and stayed at his place when I'm down there a couple times, talking baseball. We're both big baseball fans. Coach the high school baseball team and your son's baseball team.
Yep.
And girls golf.
Girls golf, 24 years of coaching baseball and 13 years of coaching golf.
So thank you for taking some time out of your busy day. I know we're winding down the school year and it's always hard to find time. So I appreciate making time to have another conversation with us. You did another podcast earlier. I'm going to have to go back and find that episode so people know that they can go back and listen to you as well. So it's great to have you back on the show. But for those of you that haven't heard you before, do you want to give us a little introduction, who you are, where you're from, and how did you become a teacher?
Oh man, the easy question, simple question. Well, first of all, Steve Murphy, and a teacher at Enumclaw High School, and this is my 13th year at Enumclaw High School, 21st year teaching overall. So spent some time at the junior high, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, start my career for about 5 years in the Federal Way School District, and then moved to the high school, to Decatur High School before coming out here. So currently teaching, social studies, been a social studies teacher the whole time, but currently teaching AP Human Geography to the freshmen, AP Government and Politics United States to the seniors, and junior United States history. As well as doing all the other coaching pieces, and
Yeah.
feels like, beyond that, even being a dad and being a husband and living life, right? So living
Yeah.
life and being.
You stay busy for sure. What was your journey into education? What'd that look like for you?
So growing up, my dad taught for 30 years. So grew up in an education household and grew up around teachers, grew up around administrators, grew up, just believing in the profession and knowing that the profession was significant. Wasn't a teacher's kid that said, "There's no way I'm going into teaching." That was not me. I never really considered it. I had baseball aspirations and broadcasting aspirations and journalism and things like that. And so went through my career and in college and graduated in communications and political science with the idea of going into public relations and working for some of those organizations. And I also had, obviously, golf as a background. So I finished playing baseball in college and went, let's give this golf thing a try. So went into the golf business for a couple of years and worked as an assistant golf professional for a couple of years. And then that was a challenging business. Okay, it's fun, but it's a challenging business. And
Interesting.
So then kind of went into the corporate world, if you will, and then the sales, worked for Mass Mutual, which is life insurance and investments and disability insurance, and sales, basically.
Yeah.
And did fine at it, did well at it, hated it. It was just too much stress and too much pressure, and working with commission and everything else, and ended up finding out after doing that for about 2 years that I'm spending a lot of time in faculty rooms and meeting with teachers and talking with teachers, and I'm spending that time there because I relate to them and it fits for me and I'm comfortable there. The problem is it doesn't make you a whole lot of money in the investment business. But I also just kind of got to a point of knowing that I wanted to coach and knowing I wanted to be a part of that. And I would still, to this day, in fact, I probably say it once a week to my students that I look at my classroom like a team. I teach like a coach, or I coach like a teacher. I don't know however you want to put it. I view them as one and the same.
I like that.
And I'm not willing to let, if I'm not willing on the baseball field to let one of my 9 or one of my 12 players not do their job. That's how I am in a class of 32. I mean, you don't get to just not do anything. You're a productive member of what we're trying to do. And that was just a big belief. And, I know it's kind of the canned response, but if you can change one kid's life, if you can make an impact upon them, it's important. And we're right now in the midst of, having seniors, and last week of school for seniors at Enumclaw High School. Today and tomorrow, I think it was yesterday and today, are what we call our Make 'em Weep program. And so the seniors get a chance to go deliver diplomas to teachers from kindergarten through senior or whatever.
Wow, cool.
That make an impact upon them. And every year you don't get a ton. Some teachers get more than others. Some years you do, some years you don't. But I just got one this morning that, again, it's one of those ones that it's this is why we do what we do. And wanting to make that impact and trying to help young kids have a future. So that's the short version.
I just love that approach, though. You teach like a coach or coach like a teacher. The idea that in your classroom, that you view your classroom as a team, and there is you're in my classroom, it's not just about you, it's about everybody.
Right.
And so, like you're saying, like on a team, you're not just letting the coach down or yourself down, you're letting the team down.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be able to have that kind of relationship with students, that you don't fail in this class because there's too many other parts that are supporting you, counting on you to do your piece.
Right. And you have a responsibility to do your part. I mean, and if that's what, the post high school piece or the workplace scenario, whether that's being an entrepreneur and running their own business, or whether that's, working for somebody else or whatever, it's a skill that is not necessarily what we would consider an academic skill, but through my journey of 21 years, I feel is way more important than some of those academic skills, is just learning that piece, learning that being a contributing member of society and contributing member of our learning environments.
Yeah, I love that. I think that goes perfectly into my next question, which is just like, what is your philosophy of your classroom? I mean, obviously very much a team approach, but what is like your teaching philosophy and things that what's the lens that you kind of look through when you're creating lessons and units and stuff for your kids?
Well, I think number one, and it's kind of developed a little bit with the work that we've done this year, to be honest. And I was just reflecting on it and looking back on, a few for my AP Human Geography students. They're finishing their end of the year reflection, I guess, and that's actually one thing that's really much of a significant philosophy of my classroom is I want students to reflect, and I don't think we make them reflect enough.
Yeah.
Whether that be on a daily basis or a week or a month or a year or
Sure.
whatever. What did you do well? What do you need to do better? What do you get better at? And a ton of them are just talking about how the journey itself has been challenging, but they would go through it again and they'd do it again. And
Mm.
one of the things that I feel like I've developed as a teacher this year is an understanding and a clear understanding that I want students to be empathetic. I want students
Mm.
to have an understanding. Empathy is a huge word and a huge concept in my classroom. Whether that be about listening to the exchange student today present to them from the Netherlands, or talking with our cultural program specialist about Native Indigenous Hawaiian people today as
Mm.
well, or whether that be working with Uganda or whatever. I want them to be, and the fellow students around them, heck, even their teachers,
Yeah.
be empathetic with their teachers, what they're
Right.
teaching.
Yeah.
So just like we should be with them. So empathy
Right.
is a huge part of that. In regards to the academic or the lesson piece, everything we try and balance, it is really kind of three parts. And number one, it's especially in the AP classes. Okay, number one, it's about getting them ready for obviously the test in the spring, which I shouldn't say number one. I would actually say number three if it's the
Yeah.
three parts. That's
Yeah.
the third most important, but it is
But it's on
reality.
everybody's mind. You have to.
Exactly. It's reality. It's
It's
there. And so
reality.
they want to know that they're prepared for it. So we're trying to prepare them for that. Number two is obviously the academic rigor to allow it to be an AP class and the transcript grade that they're going to get that's going to allow them to apply for scholarships or apply to colleges. But first and foremost, as far as I'm concerned, and that's where the empathy piece comes in, is making them more globally aware citizens, okay, and understanding about the world around them and understanding what everybody is living with and living through, and just to become empathetic with the idea of trying to make a difference and to impact in those areas. And really from the first week of school, what I nonstop talk to them about is to not worry about their grade, is not do something for a grade. And I've 3 blogs have been turned in so far of their final end of the year reflection, and I've read them, and every one of them has something in there to do about our AP with We program of working with Uganda and everything else. That when I first presented it to them, when Mr. Murphy first presented it to us,
Yeah.
he said that it's not going to be graded. And our first thoughts were, why would we do it then? I mean, every blog has it in there. And then by the end, they're like, but I started to realize that it's not about a grade. It's about all these other things. And so reading those, it just makes me feel sad. I don't know if satisfied is the right word, but comforted that what we're doing is impacting and making a difference, even in the struggles of every day that goes by. But I try and explain to them that if they focus on learning, their grade will take care of itself.
Yeah.
If they focus on their grade, they'll never learn anything. But that's kind of the big statement in our classroom, I guess, that really they hear, I think, in the beginning of the year, and they understand, but they don't like internalize and get.
Yeah.
By now, many of them get it. And so
Yeah.
it just takes a while.
And what I love is just that, I mean, you have such a clear picture, and as I'm listening to you speak there, if you go back, if anybody's listening to all these conversations I've been having with the teachers out of Enumclaw, your name, it comes up like in every episode, and you have such a clear, I think you have such a clear vision of your purpose and where you want to take kids, and you see it as this journey. And I remember, like, when we were talking, you were, right around the winter break time, you were getting really frustrated because the kids were not like, you have this vision, right? And it's going to take a while to change that mindset. And I remember us having conversations of like, they're so focused on the grade that I don't know if we're going to get there,
Right.
Can you kind of talk about that struggle and some of the changes, the conversations you had with your kids, and some of the things that you tried? Because I think that's some great stuff.
Sure. I mean, and the uniqueness for me, I think, in my course curriculum and what I'm teaching right now is I have 3 preps. And so it ranges from these high achieving or want to be high achieving freshman advanced placement students to senior advanced placement students, who many of which I've had one in years past that was taking 6 AP classes in their senior year.
Wow.
To some that are taking their first one that they've ever had, but they're seniors and they've gone through the journey.
Right.
To my junior US history students, that is just general ed. It's not AP. And so it's this huge spectrum of motivation, this huge spectrum of ability, this huge spectrum of, just a focus on education or what they want, from wanting to be pushed academically to, I just want to be done with school.
Yeah. Right.
Anywhere in between. And so it's become a challenge to try and figure out how to connect with all of them. And what I went through in December, and you look back at my blog and probably see I can't remember what it was. It was something like help.
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to work.
I don't know if it's going to work.
So
I finally just said, all right, I'm going to ask them. And this was mainly with my juniors and my not AP class, but and I gave them a survey. I gave them a Google survey, and I took 2 weeks, and I sat down and I met individually with every single student and talked to them about their things that they had written on there. And, because everybody can write whatever they want on a Google form. And when you have an individual conversation, and if you know me, Jeff, we've gotten to know each other well enough that to say to my class, all right, I'm going to leave you over here while I go have this conversation, is like start to shake. I'm supposed to be watching them. I'm supposed to be doing it. And that, I think, in and of itself was a huge learning experience for me, in that the power of the individual meeting with those students far outweighed anything that potentially could have gone on while I wasn't watching.
Right.
Besides the fact that the more trust I've given to these students, whether it be an individual choice of project or to do that, the more they've impressed me. I guess the majority of them. There's a, I don't know what the right word, there's a freedom, I think, for them in their learning, if you trust them and give them more freedom to do it, without just too much freedom. But not to get off track, so we could probably get into that on some of the other projects that we get to. But in regards to that journey, that helped, I think, my students understand a little bit more where I was coming from. It helped me understand a little bit more where they were coming from. And it is a difficult, challenging thing to do, because it's scary. It's scary to say, tell me what I'm not doing well. What's going on well, especially when they're frustrated with you or frustrated with what's happening. And I don't know, it still would be scary to do again, but I wouldn't be unwilling to do it because of what the results were that came out of it. And it doesn't mean everything was perfect in the second semester.
Sure. Right.
To it, but it definitely was better. And I think everybody understood a little bit more where each of us were coming from.
Yeah. And I think I remember you were saying that during the survey, one of the things that stood out to you, and I'll let you tell the story, but I think there was something where the overarching theme was they wanted to have choice.
Yeah.
And so then you made choice, and they all choose the regular path anyway, right? That is such human nature. Like, I want to be able to choose all the cereals, but I'm still going to go back to Cheerios.
Yep, exactly. It's exactly what it was. It was like, all right, you guys can do whatever you want. You can do any kind of production of learning that you want to do. And every one of them would come up to me and go, well, how about if I do a research on such and such topic and do a Google Slides? If I would have given you, this is the topic, and here's 15 slides, you go, oh, come on. Why
exactly. But you got to choose it. And so it's all different, right?
But anyway.
I just think that's great learning, right? Like just that idea that's so frustrating that, like, I would have assigned that to you, but you realize you chose it. So now it's different. Like,
well, and I think the learning that's come from that for me is they know they want that choice, but they don't know what that means because they've never been given that choice before.
Fair enough.
So there's some that do, some that just thrive on it. Absolutely. But there's others that I think that really need to be pushed down that road. They need to be pushed down that creative road, or down that road of trying to figure out what that is. And it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy for them, but it's also one of those things, kind of like I go back to the reflection that my human geography students are going through, because coming from middle school to a college level AP course is a huge transition. And early on, I think a lot of them are kind of like, what did I get myself into? And by the time they get done, it's like this sense of satisfaction of, oh my gosh, this is what I've done. Cool. And I think, that's the next step as we start next year. And, this year felt kind of, especially everything we were going through with this cadre and the learning and such, there was a lot of stubbing our toes and falling down and doing whatever. And what's frustrating in the moment, it gives a pretty good sense of where we're going to go next year or what I want to do next year. So.
I love that. The bell is ringing in the background for those of you that are hearing that. This is authentic stuff. We're at school.
2:30. Right? They're going to, in fact, I'm going to try not to make eye contact with them as everybody's walking out. I got my door locked. So
that's good. Take us through, like, as you reflect on this school year, is there a project or a unit that you'd like to share that you think just really, as you're reflecting on this year, is like, man, that was really good, or this is something like it went well, I think I could adjust it this way. As you reflect on this year, what's something that you're just like, like that was a really cool unit of study that I did, or
I think I'll talk about
learning the kids did.
3 different ones, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And so I think the first one is something I've done for 3 years now with my human geography freshmen, and that is a program called AP with We. And I feel like I tell the story all the time, but I know that whoever's listening maybe hasn't heard it before.
Yeah.
So, it's we partner with the We Day program, and trying to advocate and push youth to make difference in their world and make a difference in their community, and both locally and globally. And so there's always different topics that we choose. And this year we worked for the second year in a row with a woman and a surgeon from Uganda, in helping build a hospital. And last year it was about the helping of the building of the hospital. They had to have the land donated to them from the Uganda district government, and but they didn't have anything else. Now this year they have a full hospital up and running,
Cool.
which we helped last year to fundraise for and to put together. And their next step, and then you talk about the authentic learning. So
Yeah.
my students have done Google Hangouts with Isaac and Rachel and talked with them back in Uganda. They've met with them when they've come back here. And one of the things we found, which is just amazing, you talk about authentic learning, is that in Uganda, if a family member goes into the hospital, the family is responsible for feeding them when they're in the hospital. So the entire family leaves school, they leave work, they leave wherever, and they camp in the fields outside the hospital to cook and to change bedding and to do whatever. That's not done by the hospital, that's done by the family.
Yeah.
So there is no like cafeteria that's there or whatever. And so what Isaac and Rachel Mbezi are trying to do is trying to create a cafeteria that's there. They're trying to create a garden that's outside of the hospital. They're trying to create and then teach the families about these gardening techniques. So this year our focus was on food insecurity and hunger. And so we chose to partner with them again. And so what students have done is they've created menus for 5 different, according to Isaac, who's the surgeon there, 5 different medical issues that they see most prominently.
Yeah.
And hand out. And they're very much a visual culture rather than a written word culture. So they've had to send in proofs, instructional design type of proofs.
Wow.
To get back and then kind of fix and change, and then be able to just print over in Uganda.
Yeah.
Like small little side note learning thing. They've gone, okay, well, where can we print them, Mr. Murphy? And then how do we get them over there? I'm like, why are you printing them? You have to check see if they have the ability to print there. Oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
So they still think like, okay, we have to produce it here and then send it there.
And then send it there.
As opposed to just the information. But anyways, they've done that. We got one group, in fact, I have in the back corner back here about 3 hoes and a few different things. Then they got to go to the to Home Depot here this next weekend and buy a bunch of stuff that they're going to send over with Rachel's mom over to them, so that they have them to be able to run the Keyhole Garden along with feed.
Very cool.
And so they've done that, which we've worked and done one locally 2 years ago, and then done one with Uganda. And the last 2 years, though, the impact, and I have you to thank for that, because the first lesson that really kind of got me started on this journey was with Kuwait and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I think I told you the connection wasn't good. We didn't have great connections with pieces, but the fact that they talked to Uganda is the most memorable thing to them. I mean, it's like this world has opened up to them, that it's not about a worksheet, it's not about a book, it's not about a test, it's about all these other pieces. And so that part's fantastic. And then this year, you talk about letting go a little bit. This year, one of the days we were down there with training with you, we were supposed to be doing the hangout. And so I ran down and I got them started, and they passed the Chromebook around and had individual conversations with Isaac and Rachel while I wasn't here. And so they're talking with them and doing that. And so that's one project that I'm always proud of. And
it's such a great
coming to fruition. I'm trying to finish up the next week and a half.
Yeah. 8 days to get the tools.
They got a PO, and I'm like, you guys got to get this stuff purchased because I got to get the receipt in. So we're getting all that squared away.
Very cool.
That's one. The second one came about, I think, probably more due to mutual respect for a colleague that I have than anything else, and that was with JB Blair, who, if you've done I don't know if you've done this with him yet.
Yeah. So JB was a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. So JB is phenomenal, just an outstanding human being, but a great, fantastic teacher that I'd love to learn from. And I don't know, I'm not shy about saying, just like I love working with you, Jeff. I'm not shy about it. If there's people that I respect, I want to work with them because I'm going to learn from them and I'm going to get better. I'm going to do that. And so he and I just kind of got together and said, let's do something. We had no idea what that meant, but let's just do something. And it somehow matched up where we were able to, his 8th grade students were blogging. And really where it came from is, I think one of the statements I've always said since I did the Google Hangouts with you is the 4 walls of the classroom come down, and everything opens up to be what we learn in here as opposed to just what's here. And we've always kind of thought about that in a grandiose way of thinking about internationally.
Yeah.
I started thinking about, how about just school to school? How about just, classroom to classroom or whatever? And classroom to classroom, we usually get together personally, but EMS is across the street. And so how about we just, do it school to school within our district? And so they were blogging. We settled on the fact that they were blogging about a constitutional issue and constitutional question. How about if I have my AP seniors read your 8th grade blogs? He's like, oh my gosh, that's going to freak them out. And we had to set up different kinds of parameters to it, but the authentic conversations in my classroom the day that they got to start reading their blogs, because the conversation wasn't just about content or about constitution. It was about, how do you be a mentor? How do you be a leader? How do you encourage without destroying confidence? How do you, all these things that is making these seniors, as they're leaving, graduating and moving on, think about for their own brothers and sisters or the youth that they're going to impact or whatever. And the conversations that I loved in class weren't so much about the Constitution. It was like, how do I say this without being mean?
Yeah.
How do I say this without thinking that I'm mad at them or whatever? And then they're looking back on it going, oh my goodness, they don't think about anything. I was like, that was you 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Now you see my frustration. This was you when I got you as a freshman, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
So we did that, and they commented on the blogs, and then there was obviously lots of different filters that were there. So JB had to approve them before they went on, and there's lots of different things for security purposes that we had. And then what we did is we had, I gave my students that same question, and we set up a inner circle, outer circle, fishbowl, Socratic seminar, whatever you want to call it. I just call it a fishbowl discussion. And we had the students in the center having a dialogue with Chromebooks closed, with nothing, just having a dialogue.
Yeah.
And then the students in the outer circle had a shared Google document that they were commenting on and having their own discussion in silence.
Very cool.
And then JV students were all the way around the outside of the room watching my students do that. So the 8th graders came and observed and watched the senior level AP class high achieving students model this type of behavior. And I think for both of us, it just became this, oh, wow, how are we not doing more of this?
Yeah.
Because number one, these 8th grade students became more excited about high school, and they're not even done with 8th grade yet.
Very cool.
Like if they do stuff like this is cool. We're excited about that. A number of those students are going to be in my freshman AP class.
Very
they got
cool.
to see me and know me and got to be excited about that. They got to then understand kind of how you have a dialogue about controversial topics without being offensive, I guess, or being rude or
attacking
whatever, or attacking and being able to, disagree, but yet still be civil to one another. And so we got to model that piece. So then about a week later, he did the exact same discussion,
cool.
But he did just like a circle kind of Socratic seminar. And I took, I think 12 seniors down to observe and watch him.
Oh, very cool.
And then my students commented on how they thought they did at the end. And so they had to kind of give that teacher feedback of, this is what I think you did well. And so they get kind of this, the mentor or the ones helping. And conversation, again, one of those things, you can do all this formalized writing, whatever. The most impactful conversation I had was walking back from EMS.
Yeah.
Here, they were students in a very formal way.
Right.
And the question was, I wonder, do you think that their conversation would have been as high level down there that we just witnessed for if number one, you weren't there?
You're right.
Or if number two, they hadn't watched you beforehand. And overwhelmingly, my seniors like, no. I remember being an 8th grader. No, it wouldn't have been as good without those two things.
Wow.
It's a win. It's a win right there.
Yeah. Game changer.
And so because we hadn't planned it, we wanted to do another one, but he's got his 8th grade exit interviews. And so going into next year, we're hoping to do more.
That's fantastic. I love that. And if you want to hear, it's fantastic because you can also hear JB explain it. And it's so great to hear both of you explain the same experience. and just both of you have very similar takes, but just in your own words, explain that experience. So for those of you listening, JB was episode 82. So if you're downloading these episodes on your phone or however you listen to our podcast, if you go back and listen to episode 82, you'll hear that exact same story, only through an 8th grade social studies.
8th grade lens.
Yeah, it's so great. It's just, again, it's one of those things where we talk about this, that when we're having kids, there's two things that I love. One, face-to-face is still important. And I think kids need to understand that as well. Not everything can be transferred or transferred over digital. Well, there are still times where we need to be face-to-face to have conversations where you can be critical of each other, but still respect each other and be able to model that. I love that idea. And then the second part of also, that idea of collaborating across time and space. And we talk about that a lot, where, you have a blog, and how do you allow somebody or push somebody without attacking? Those are life skills within, and you're still learning the content you need them to learn. You're still going through lack of a better term, curriculum that you have to, but you're doing it in a way that also gives them these other experiences that we all know are the experiences that they're going to need. You need to know whether it's a comment on a blog or emailing somebody back, stopping and thinking about how you approach that conversation digitally is a critical skill today.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And you start talking about those critical skills, and I know there was a third project I wanted to talk about when we get to that in a second, but you start talking about those critical skills. That's the other direction that I've gone in. And that is to focus on, especially, so my AP students are typically, not all of them, typically are my highly motivated kind of, you have to dial them back from worried about their grades.
Yeah.
Dial them back and then focus on the learning. The opposite end of the spectrum is a lot of times my U.S. history students. They're the ones that, don't even want to be here. They don't want to show up. They don't necessarily want to be at school. They want to be doing other things. So coming out of those interviews and conversations that I had with them was, not only they want choice, but they wanted it to be relevant. Like, I want it to be relevant to me. I don't know why this isn't relevant to me. And so what we settled on is, regardless of what we're talking about or what the topic is, and I'll let you choose the topic, there's still some basic employability skills that I want you to have, that I want you to leave my room with. I want you to leave, high school with. And I said, can we all agree that those are things that you're going to need? And they're like, yeah. So let's put together what that is. And so we put together a rubric of, attendance and punctuality and work ethic and work habits and communication, because you got to communicate with, your boss or your coworkers or whoever. And they're starting to use that language now. Like, even my freshmen are talking about, I became better as a communicator with my teacher and better as a communicator with my group. And so, yeah, those things are the things that endure, if you ask me personally, versus just content and content knowledge.
The transferable skills that we get.
Transferable skills, And so well, again, you probably do your first podcast was with Gunnar, right? Was with Gunnar Argo. That you did here. And so Gunnar Argo and Allison Abrahams and myself, entered into this Impress Me project idea that still going on, trying to finish it up in the next week. It's got some absolute significantly huge celebrations, and I'll share one with you because it makes the whole thing worthwhile.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of stubbing our toes and tripping over curbs and face with this one. And so when you start talking about the choice piece, in theory, it all seems fantastic. It seems great. It seems wonderful. And how could you complain, students? It's going to be just this great learning environment. But yeah, we missed the boat on having a little too, not enough structure, I guess, if you will. And so it didn't quite work out exactly how we wanted, but man, for the students that were motivated and really appreciated that, I have one group, it just left me 5th grade just a little bit ago, who they decided they wanted to do a podcast. Ironic we're talking about that because we're on here. And hopefully it's going to be out in the next week and a half, and I'm going to share it with you.
Yes, please do.
You right now on air, if you will blast it out on your.
Absolutely. 100%.
They're doing a music podcast. So one of the main guys behind it just won he and his percussion group just won the state championship for the solo ensemble for drums and things. But they wanted to promote our local music as well as just music in general, and so they've started something called I'm gonna have to get it right now. Buzz Talk or something like that, Buzz Chat, something along those lines. They have a logo. They have a music guy, or not a music guy, but a sound guy that does that. They have a video guy. They have the on-air personalities, and they have all these different episodes. They've already recorded 2 episodes. They got a third one that they're going to make. They're just trying to finalize and edit them and get them done. And we've talked about trying to, they have a website. To talk them into doing an Instagram so they can put that out there.
Perfect.
Trying to talk them into putting them on iTunes.
Yeah.
For that, because one of them said, "Hey, I have a friend in New Jersey that said he wanted to listen to it." And I'm like, okay, well, you do that. And started talking about it, and Alice and I were talking about it with him. And I said, well, how about Jeff, promotes it? How about
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But, the first one is, what did they do? They brought in our ASB president, and they brought in another officer, and they did a podcast about what does the future of EHS look like for next year.
Ooh, cool.
Right. So they brought him in and talked about that. Then the next one was bringing in Mr. Laborte and Mr. Barker and a few of the musical people from around here, and trying to promote the EHS music department and program for those listening around here that might go, man, I want to get interested and involved in that. But they want to expand beyond that, and they want to continue to do it next year. They want to do it, even beyond that, even as a hobby or whatever else.
Very cool.
The coolest thing about it is none of them had any idea other than they knew what a podcast is.
Yeah.
Without any idea, and had never done one before. And so one of our teachers here has a podcast station set up, and all I did was introduce these young students, one of them in particular, to his teacher and said, would you mind if they came in one time, didn't know this, or to learn about this? And he said, sure, you come in during our study time period, do whatever.
Yeah.
3 weeks later, I was walking out one day, and they're recording a podcast. They're in this room, and they're sitting down. They got their headphones on, like you and I are doing right now.
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
And when I walk in, and they're like,
yeah,
we're recording a podcast. And they went in like on their own during our study hall time periods. They learned, they practiced, they did a few practice ones. They learned how to do the music thing. I was talking to the one young man who is the one that's in charge of the editing of it, and I said, so have you done like this stuff before? Nope, never. I said, well, how'd you learn it? Just learned it. It's been a long time. I just learned it. It's getting easier as I go, and it's the most authentic learning that you can get. And the fact that they would have never had the opportunity to do that had they not just said, all right, here's the Impress Me project, do something that impresses us.
Yeah.
Is right in and of itself validation for doing it.
Yeah. And you, I love that. And there's no way you can grade everything those kids are learning.
No chance.
I mean, you just can't. Like the
amazing thing about it is, and it does work. It doesn't necessarily work for all of them. Is from the very beginning of this, when we presented it in, what was that, October?
Yeah, I think October.
Their hands go up. How's it going to be graded? It's not.
Yeah.
There's no grade associated with it. There's still not a grade associated with this, and this is what these students have put together.
And this is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. There hasn't been a single grade associated with it, nor will there be.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing because they're loving it, and they're spending all this time on their own.
That's so cool. I just love it. That's so great. Yes, please let them know whenever they're ready to promote it, or if they need help, how to get it into iTunes or any of that.
We might need that help.
Stuff.
Yeah. So
yeah,
sure.
Tell them to reach out. I support them however I can, for sure.
Great.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Steve, I know you and I could talk forever, and I just love it. That's what I love. I'll definitely have you back on some more, because just love your take and your philosophy on education and everything that you're trying and stumbling and doing. And I love having teachers like you. I mean, the entire cohort this last year, but it's great when you're just like, hey, I've got this crazy idea. Would you mind go trying it? And just and some of them work and some of them don't, and we stumble our way through it. But understanding that every time we do that, we learn something, right? We learned something. We learned it didn't work, or we learned it worked, or somewhere in between those two, and we continue to move forward.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Thank you for taking time to just talk about your philosophy and some of the projects that you're doing with kids. I will make sure there's a link to your blog. Is there anything else you want to link to in the show notes to this?
I don't think so. Not right now.
Okay.
Cool. Students for AP, we have put some stuff together. I don't have anything to give you right now.
Okay. Nope. That's fine. And then I'll make sure your Twitter handles there. People want to reach out, and contact Steve. Please do. It's great to bring classrooms together and that global experience specific, especially. So
that's my passion right now. That.
Yeah.
And it's a hard time getting connection with people. So people all around, the country, all around the world, whatever, we want to link in and do something, I'm in. I'm in.
I love it. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Shifting Our Schools with your host, Jeff Udick. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit sospodcast.org, facebook.com/Jeff Udick, and on Twitter @JUdick. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Shifting Our Schools.